Welcome back to another episode of War in Cali. In this episode, I'ma detail Lennox 13. Lennox 13 originated over 50 years ago on the west side of Lennox. Their hood stretches from La Brea Ave to the 405 freeway, between 104th Street to 111th Street. Parts of their hood extends to nearby cities like Glendale and Lawndale. Lennox 13 has multiple cliques in their territory, and even have some branches in different cities. Lennox 13 are aligned to the Mexican Mafia and fall under the Sir 13 identity. Their main rivals includes gangs like the Hawthorne Dynasty, the 11-8 gangster Crips, Dropout 13, Polynesian Crip gang TCG, and Inglewood 13. But with that being said, let's get into some cases. Frank and Termite, they were co-owners of the Westside clothing store in Santa Monica. Termite was a member of the Santa Monica 17th Street gang. On October 27, 1998, Franklin was at the store prepping for his up-and-coming grand opening. He was with his cousins Michael, Anthony, and a man named Matt. Just before noon, three masked men entered the store and started firing multiple rounds. Matt ran to the back of the store and he was terrified. That boy down there shitted himself. We'll see the masked men just shooting up the store randomly and shooting up anything they can. When the shots stopped, Frank grabbed his gun and went to the front of the store. He found Michael laying on the ground. Michael was shot 13 times and he died from multiple gunshots. Anthony, who was shot 5 times, died as well. Matt and Frank were both shot, but they survived from their injuries. Puppet from Lennox 13 and his homie Psycho were both arrested on an unrelated robbery, and they both were charged for that robbery. But by 2005, Puppet and Psycho DNA would be found on a ski mask, and witnesses would say they were involved in the shooting at West Coast Clothing. Their first trial in 2009 ended in a mistrial after jury deadlocked. In their second trial, in 2011, they were found guilty. Puppet was sentenced to 39 years to life, and Psycho received 178 years to life. April 12, 1999, Gilbert, Jose, Luis, Daniel, and Telly, all members from the Ply Street gang, were together in the alley when someone came in the alley and started shooting. Gilbert would be shot in the back and died from multiple gunshot wounds. Jose would be shot in the leg. Neighbors heard multiple gunshots and saw 3 young men running from the alley and jump in the car and drive away. The Plies members believed that Lennox 13 did the shooting. Telly told the police that Gilbert got into a fight, and this was probably payback. Shooting would go unsolved for years, but in April 2005, a man named Lou was shot and killed while attending a party. Soon after this, Luis, who was shot at in 1999, came forth with information and said that Lennox 13 was involved in both shootings. This will later lead up to 2 Lennox members, Jamie and Carlos, being picked up for both shootings. They will both later receive life. August 15th, 2005. Trevor was delivering newspapers from his car in Lawndale. 2 cars would pull up on him and started mugging him. As he drove away, he was followed by the cars. A few seconds later, he heard multiple gunshots and realized his car had been shot at, but he could not identify who the shots came from, and he called 911. Police quickly responded and spotted a car coming their way. The car was full of Lennox 13 members, and they stopped the car, and they had multiple guns inside. Lennox 13 members were out looking for Lawndale 13, but they shot at an innocent person instead of an enemy. Shooter was named Sniper from Lennox, but his name should have been Slapped the way the judge slapped his ass with 15 years to life. April 30th, 2006. Gerardo had a lot of money on him and was wearing jewelry. He went to a bar near Hollywood Park. A surveillance camera outside the bar recorded a videotape that showed Gerardo exiting the car and being met by Cisco, a Lennox 13 member. Also other Lennox members there, like Shaggy and a man named Alfredo. At some point in the night, videotape showed Gerardo going to the bathroom. He was followed by Cisco. Shaggy pointed in the direction where Cisco and Gerardo had gone and made a hand signal to Alfredo. Shaggy gave him a thumbs up, and the 3 Lennox members followed Gerardo in the bathroom. Witnesses had heard 3 to 4 gunshots and saw 2 Hispanic men running from the area. They were also later identified as Shaggy and Alfredo. Gerardo was later found dead and robbed of everything he had. Shaggy, Alfredo, and Cisco were later picked up from everything being on camera. They were all placed in a cell together and will talk about the shooting and the robbery that they committed. This would get Alfredo life for being the shooter. November 28th, 2006. Daniel and David were walking when they were encountered a group of 4 men. Daniel and David were both members of the Tokers gang. Group of 4, they was from Lennox, so they started banging on them because they had them outnumbered. The Lennox members named Alonzo will be doing the most banging, and he wanted to pack them out. But this all led to him becoming a pack himself. Alonzo will be shot 4 times, and he died from his injuries. David and Daniel then left the scene. They were later picked up by several witnesses at the scene, and both David and Daniel later received life sentences. On November 9th, 2007, Edgar and Harrison were both on South Gale Avenue. They saw a car drive by, and a Hispanic man entered the right passenger seat of the car, holding a gun and started shooting at them. Nobody would be shot from this incident. Edgar told the police a man named Curly was the driver, and Taz was the shooter. Edgar knew them from school, and he said they were his enemies from Lennox 13. Edgar was from Hawthorne Dynasty. On November 12th, Glenn, Byron, Raul, and Anna were at a home on Gale Avenue, the same place where the shooting took place on November 9th. They noticed a car driving by slow and pointed it out to others. They knew they had to be from Lennox 13. The car then pulled up next to the group and started shooting. Glenn and Byron were shot multiple times, but survived. Curly was later arrested and pinned to these shootings. He was charged with these 2 shootings and also a robbery. This got Curly 178 years to life. On April 29th, 2009, 3 11A gangster Crips were at their hood park, Ellipticus Park. Several Lennox 13 members came to their park deep and started dissing them in their hood. This led to a fight. Later that day, the Lennox 13 members came back riding around the park in several cars, dissing the Crips. So the Crips wanted revenge. Jamie was cooking inside his taco truck at his usual location on Inglewood Avenue, near the intersection of Lennox, with about 15 customers around. He then heard several gunshots and saw people falling and throwing themselves on the ground. He looked out the window and saw a black male towards his customers, firing at the crowd. Shooter then quickly left the scene. This shooting left 6 shot and 1 dead. While trying to flee, the shooter was tracked down in a car with several other Crips, and a weapon in the shooting was later found. This shooting got DeAndre and Olton from 11A Gangster Crip both 300 years to life. 2011, police would try to shut down Lennox 13. Nearly 500 local and state federal agency officers arrested 27 people connected to the Lennox 13 after an 18-month criminal investigation to bring them down. July 6, 2015, 2 Tongan TCG members will be shot. This made other TCG members go on a rampage. On October 6, 2015, Henry and Sheila were at Lennox Park on a bench chilling. Around 8:30 p.m., Henry and Sheila saw 2 Tongans approach them with guns in their hand. Henry and Sheila began to run. Both of them were shot. Sheila was shot multiple times and survived. Henry was shot 11 times and he survived as well. On November 8, 2015, several Tongans were at a church on Lennox Boulevard. A Mexican man rode by on a bike and pulled out a gun and threatened everyone at the church. On November 9th, 2 Tongan men drove to 111th Street and spotted a Mexican man and started shooting. They shot him 5 times and this shooting made him disabled. Later that month, Sabrina and Kenneth were at a liquor store when multiple Tongan men came up to him and started shooting out of an alley. They were both shot multiple times, but both survived. On January 26, 2016, Ernesto and his pregnant wife were standing outside their house when a car full of TCG members drove by and yelled at TCG and started shooting. Ernesto was shot 5 times, but he survived. Police began to watch TCG and wiretapped them. This pinned them to all the related crimes, and these wiretaps were even pinned into other shootings against Lennox 13 and even Pyrus and Carson. This got 5 TCG members arrested, and they all will be charged with multiple shootings. Greg and Carlos and another Lennox member were on the hunt one night for Thapa 13 gang members. They pulled up in their hood to do a drive-by, and they spotted one. Started to shoot at him, but this drill didn't go as planned. The Thapa 13 members started shooting back, and this led to Greg and Carlos' homie getting shot, and them having to flee the scene. Police heard the shooting and caught the Lennox 13 members driving away. They took them on a high-speed chase, but they crashed the car. Greg would get 18 years for the shooting, and Carlos got 15. Ishmael was on the street of Lennox when the car drove by, and the passenger window rolled down, and a woman yelled "This is to Lennox," and yelled "Thapa" out the window, and she started shooting at Ishmael. Damn, the Thapa 13 even had hole sliding, but she missed every shot. She was later charged for the shooting. A few Lennox 13 members, including Justin and a man named Emilio, went to a party. There were several other gangs at the party, like 18th Street. This would lead to altercations, and the Lennox 13 members shooting a couple people. A man named Anthony will be shot and killed. Cameras from across the street of the party captured Lennox members running away with guns in their hand. This would later lead to them being arrested. It also didn't help they were bragging about the killing. This got both Justin and Emilio life. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.